Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another conversation. I would like to call it a conversation. It's a discussion we're going to be having, and I'm grateful to be able to come on. And thanks and praise for allowing me the opportunity to come on and share testimonies and encourage and empower others to continue to thrive in every season that they come to. Okay, so I just wanted to explain today what the purpose of thriving is. The purpose of this thriving event is to be able to share with the world diverse, real experiences that women have overcome and are now thriving. And I'm going to read a Bible scripture really quickly. Coming from Psalms 52, verses 8 and 9. But I am like an olive tree, thriving in the house of God. I will always trust in God's unfailing love. I will praise you forever, O God, for what you have done. I will trust in your good name in the presence of your faithful people. Amen. Today we have a very, 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 very powerful testimony that will be coming from my dear friend, Gwendolyn Brown. And I just wanted to put a trigger warning because I know that through life we do experience things that can be traumatic for us. But this is her testimony and she's going to be sharing with you. And I just want to put a disclaimer out there that watching this discussion may trigger you a bit, but I just want to encourage you from now to open your heart to receive what she is about to deliver to you. Okay. So Gwendolyn Brown is a survivor, advocate, motivational speaker, FF, a facilitator, and transformational coach. Gwendolyn is dedicated to empowering women, children, and communities impacted by intimate partner violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and gender-based violence. She is the founder of Empowerment for Hope Society, where she designs trauma-informed programs, workshops, and retreats that support healing, resilience, and restoration. Gwendolyn is a trauma-informed coach, certified assistant facilitator, certified domestic violence facilitator, certified child and youth worker, meditation and wellness coach, NFL facilitator, and a sexual assault supporter through the Department of Opportunities and Social Development. Her holistic, survivor-centered approach blends education, advocacy, mindfulness, and lived experience to help individuals reclaim their voice and rebuild their lives. As a sought-after motivational speaker, facilitator, and community leader, Gwendolyn is deeply committed to inclusivity, equality, and collective healing, particularly within marginalized communities and underserved communities. Through powerful storytelling and education, she challenges stigma, raises awareness, and inspires survivors to transform pain into purpose, into action. Life is unpredictable. It comes with twists and turns, and we are often met with worldly standards that we didn't choose, but are always pushed in our faces. Gwendolyn, you have thrived, preserved, and conquered, and I'd love for you to share your testimony. I'm going to bring Gwendolyn on now.
Hey, Melissa.
Let's leave it like this.
Yep.
Okay. You want to share your testimony? Would love to hear it.
Well, I'm Gwendolyn Brown, and I am the CEO and founder of Empowerment for Hope Society, which is a grassroots nonprofit organization here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, that primarily supports those that are affected by gender-based violence, domestic sex trafficking, homelessness, and addiction. Thank you for having me here today.
And I know you wanted to share your video of your testimony.
If you want to share the video, you can. That's totally up to you.
Or how to do it from here.
Or we can just go through the questions, and I will speak to my life experience through the questions.
Sure, no problem. Do you want to give a brief, little brief summary of like what you went through, and what you will be speaking about?
What I will be speaking about will be about my childhood, growing up as a young child, going through child sexual abuse. I will also speak to, in my teenage years, of me being targeted and groomed into sex trafficking. And I will talk also about my suicide attempts. I will speak to, even after coming out of the sex trafficking, how I myself, due to a drug addiction, some mental health issues that I was suffering at the time, and how I prostituted myself, and my life with homelessness. That was over a period of 3 years.
Okay. So some of the questions were pertaining to the video that you wanted to show. However, unfortunately, I'm so sorry we're unable to show it. I can put it in the comments for you guys to watch the discussion, but we'll just ask the questions and then you can download and encourage. So you mentioned that you experienced things and saw things within your home that caused you to become a victim of child sex abuse. Can you expand on this a bit?
I grew up with my mom, my dad, and my brother. And in our home, at that time, my dad was an alcoholic. And due to that, I became a victim of child sexual abuse by someone who I used to take as an uncle. I knew as a young girl, when this was happening to me, that it was wrong. And as in any type of abuse that goes on, a child is always groomed before anything really does happen. And there was many times that I can remember how I used to take baths, because that's how it happened for me. I used to take baths, and this uncle used to come into the bathroom. And first it was just staring at me, and then it started to, he wanted to wash me. And I understood, even as a young child of 7 years old, I understood that this was very wrong. And from there, I couldn't really say anything to any one of my parents. My dad used to be sitting downstairs in the chair, sometimes passed out from drinking so much. And I knew my mom used to work, so I really didn't want to say anything to my mom. My mom ran a very strict household. And she was very religious, and she still is. And due to the fact that when people prey on young children, one of the things that they will most likely do, which happened to me, is that they would tell me that nobody would believe me. They would make me feel, he used to make me feel that it was my fault and that he wasn't trying to hurt me. This was his way, his form of love that he was trying to show towards me. Um, he got me to do things that no 7, 8, 9-year-old child should have to do to an older man. Um, he finally came to the place where he started to make threats to that he would do things to my brother. And because of the fear of that, I literally just if I can say the word right, I literally just listened to what he told me. I allowed him to do the sexual things that he was doing to me, which was touching. He would get me to do things to him. And all the while, I honestly knew deep down inside that this was truly, truly, truly wrong. But, looking back on that now and, thinking about, what I went through as a child and how I kept that all inside because I couldn't say anything to anybody. And I was afraid of, what would happen if I did tell my parents. And not just simply because he told me that they wouldn't believe me. That was part of it. But for the simple fact that I was afraid. I was afraid of how my parents would look at me, to be honest. And this went on for quite a number of years, from the time I was 7 until I was 9. And finally, we ended up moving literally from out of that area of the city that we lived in. And for me, it was a fresh start to be able to put all that stuff behind me, and just to be able to not have to remember, even though it was inside of me. And I did a lot of things. I tried to throw myself into meeting new friends, which was something that was very scary for me, based on the fact of everything that I had come through. So I didn't say anything to anybody for a long, long, long time. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
My next question is, what are some signs of abuse that parents or family members can look out for in their daughters, nieces, cousins, friends, nephews, or whomever?
Some signs that parents can look out for. If you know that your child is a vibrant child, that they're thriving in school, for instance, that they love being around family members. One of the signs for myself, I became very withdrawn. I didn't like to be touched, and I used to love getting hugs, but I started, because of what I went through, I didn't like to be touched. I didn't like anybody to hug me. I literally couldn't even bring myself sometimes to even say to my dad that I love you, because, a lot of it was because inside I blamed my dad that he didn't protect me. And because of that, I couldn't do well in school because I had so much on my mind. I was always thinking, like, when is this ever going to happen again? And when you see your child being withdrawn, or you find that they're not as talkative as they used to be, you see that maybe their grades are slipping, and that they're just not the child that you're used to have. It's time to maybe sit down and have conversations with your child, even if you don't know what's going on, or you don't suspect that they're being abused, and whether it's sexually or any other type of abuse. It's time to sit down and talk to your child and literally find out what is going on. And a way to do that is to let that child know that you're a person that they can trust. You're the person that is not going to judge them. And because of the fear of being judged is why I never ever told my parents for years, and I mean years and years, that what I had went through.
Wow. This it's becoming very popular. I wouldn't say popular, but it's a thing that is happening way too often now. And I really, um, I just want this to be an opportunity for others to be able to gain information, valuable information that they can use to spot these things, because it's not okay. And although we can't save everybody, it's great for people to have the information so that they're of how to protect
Mhm.
themselves, to protect their nieces, their nephews, so I really love that you are a powerful testimony to show other people that you can thrive, although you go through challenging
Mhm.
circumstances. You don't have to become your circumstance, and you can rise above whatever that you went through and thrive. I really love that you're sharing your testimony and encouraging, and using what you went through to push people and encourage them to continue to go forward.
And this is
Um,
why I do share.
in your
Uh,
high school days, would you say the group you are with had an influence on your situation?
um, to a certain degree, maybe when I got a little older, but as a young child, I really just hung around. Mostly was like family members, cousins, and stuff like that. But one thing that I want to say in regards to paying attention and thriving from all that I've been through, now that I'm older and I do this work, and um, I know that I'm a child of God, I I can honestly say throughout all that abuse that I went through, that somewhere the hand of God was upon my life. I didn't understand it. Trust me, there was, because I was younger and I didn't fully understand certain things when it came to being a child of God. Um, God really did have his hand upon me. And yes, I may have went through all those things that I went through, but God seeing down the road where I was going to be. I couldn't see it because I felt like I was never going to get out of that trap. And not just from the abuse, but from what was going through in my mind, because my mind was trapped. I lived with this in my heart, in my mind, like for years. It really did not even come out until after I went through some other forms of sexual abuse, um, some rape, and through the sex trafficking. And it was only at that time, and that would have been like maybe 15 years later or something like that, that finally I was able to um, break down and tell my parents what really happened. And it was sad that it had to come out at a trial, but as a young person, when you have parents, and my parents did love me, and my mom worked a lot, but when you have parents that are there for you, I would really encourage you, anybody that is on here that is a young person, and even as parents, please don't take, when you see your child acting out, being defiant. Sometimes it's just not because, oh, they're going through the teenage years, or, this is at the age where they get sassy. You sometimes you really have to look at their actions, because if this is not normal for the child that you've raised, then you need to start asking some important questions, like what is going on. And you need to leave a space where that child not just feels safe after what they've been through, but you have to leave a space where they can feel brave enough and know that they can come to you without judgment. And a lot of parents, based on the fact that they get scared and they don't know how to formulate into words how to talk to their children. And sometimes us as black people and as black parents, one of the first things that we're quick to do is to cast judgment. And this was one of the biggest reasons why I was very scared to say anything to my parents, because I didn't want to be blamed for what happened. And also on top of that, listening to this uncle, he made me believe that, other than my parents wouldn't believe me, that I would be blamed. And because of that, I couldn't speak. So I implore parents, or caregivers, always leave space to really have deep, meaningful relationships with your children, so that you would know the different signs when your child is being withdrawn, or they're not, you find that they're lying to you, or they're just not being academic the way that they used to be in school. They're not hanging with their friends the way that they used to. Something is wrong. And these are the times, especially with so much child sexual abuse that is going on, because it normally starts with child sexual abuse, that young girls end up falling into domestic sex trafficking or other forms of sexual assaults, as it did happen to myself. And when I think back to I have an 8-year-old granddaughter. I talk to her. I explain to her, certain things about her autonomy and how precious she is, and nobody's supposed to touch you. I ask her question: did anybody ever do that to you? And a lot of times now that we're up in this modern life, there's the internet. All kids love being on the internet. My granddaughter loves playing on Roblox. She'll say to me, "Nanny, can you read this for me?" And I'll look at what's on the screen, and and it normally is just another child talking to her. I take time and I go through the chats, because I want to make sure that nobody is on there trying to groom her, and she doesn't understand. And as young kids, especially nowadays, they love taking pictures of themselves. And a lot of times I really stress this to kids in school when I'm talking to them. What you put out on the internet goes into cyberspace. And young girls that like to, and it's not their fault, because young girls like to look pretty. They like to wear low-cut tops because that makes them feel good about themselves. But sometimes it's just when traffickers are looking to manipulate young girls to get them into sex trafficking, these are certain things that they look for. They look for the young girl who's on social media a lot, posting. They pay attention to who their friends are. They pay attention to, because a lot of kids love going on Snapchat and talking all kinds of things. I look at some things on Snapchat, from other people's accounts, and I hear some kids, upset because, mom and dad is fighting, or they're upset because their mom wouldn't let them go to a party. These are targeted things that traffickers look for when they're trying to groom your children. So just be open, be honest. If you know for yourself that you have been through something as a parent back in your younger days, it could have been a sexual assault. Be straight up, be honest. Use that as your crutch to open up a door to be able to talk to your child, to maybe get your child to open up, especially if you know that your child is not the way that they normally are. And you don't want to be the parent that throws stones. And I always tell parents, just because your child is acting out, it's not the teenage years. You have to look deeply into, why are they acting like this? Why are they being saucy to me? Because not all kids that backtalk their parents is doing it because it's the teenage years. There's something so much deeper underlining that could be happening. And lately, within my work within the past year, to be honest, I have been coming across what we call familial trafficking. And that is when a close caregiver, family member is trafficking a child right within the home. I recently I have a client. She has now had to be removed from the home and put into a group home. And it was through one of my presentations that she reached out to me to tell me what was going on in her home, really, in regards to her mom's boyfriend. She had a brand new phone. You got to look at certain signs, because these are some signs that will show you that somebody else is influencing your child. And if you do not influence your child yourself, and especially if you're someone like me who was brought up in the church, my mother instilled that into me. And even though that she did instill that into me, the devil had a way of coming in with this man and him doing the things that he did to me. But thinking about this young girl and how her mom's boyfriend was using money and buying her nice gifts like the cell phone, and also like giving her alcohol. And it's a home that the parents like to party on the weekends all the time with the kids right in the home. So the kids see things like the drugs that are being used. They see, their family into drinking a lot. And it was easy for this man to groom this little girl into doing certain things with him. And when she came to me, one thing I really say this with all, like, from the bottom of my heart: if your child tells you something, please believe them. Don't ever look at them as this woman did and told me, your daughter, my daughter likes to wear little sports bra. You see, like, she likes to wear shorts around the house. She's flaunting herself. And based on just that conversation alone, I knew that I would never be able to convince this mother that her daughter was being familiar trafficked right in her home by her own boyfriend. And because of the work that I do when the child was under the age of 18, I knew it was by law that I had to report it. It was really hard for me to report it because I didn't want to see the child taken away from her mother based on the conversations that she and I have had. But I knew for her safety and for the safety of the other younger kids in the home, I had to tell. The mother still has the two younger ones because they're more babyfied. But this young girl, I had to tell because I was afraid of where this was going to lead. Actually, I knew if familiar trafficking was happening, then I knew sooner or later that this was going to end up into full-blown domestic sex trafficking. And I didn't want to see that for this young girl because she was doing so well, thriving in school. And I will always be grateful that God gives me the strength to share my story to be able to help others, because it was because of that she was able to come to me and to tell me the things that was going on in her home. So we need to be more vigilant. And when our kids are online for long periods of time, we need to be more vigilant in watching what our kids are doing online and who they're talking to, because now the internet is a clear, easy way for traffickers to literally lure, groom your children.
Wow, this is a lot of valuable information. And it's a time, as you say, we have to be vigilant in our children's lives, because a lot of people are out there doing a lot of things that would surprise us. And I'm grateful that you were able to step in. I'm grateful you were able to share your story, your testimony, for somebody to be able to say, I need help too. Maybe I can, go speak to her and she can help me get through whatever situation I'm going through. I'm grateful for you and empowers you and gives you the strength to do this, because it's needed. It's so needed. Especially in our community. It's so needed because, as you mentioned, typically in Black households, it's very tedious. It's hard to express yourself openly, and not be judged or looked down on. Sometimes we
Exactly.
think parents think we know it all, right? And so we try to
Right.
enforce different things on our children. And it's not really, what they need. So I'm at this
Hmm.
moment, I would like to encourage parents to be open and to just sitting and listening to your children. Give them the space to be able to express to you openly and
Hmm.
honestly with whatever it is that they're going through. When they come home from school, start by those little things and listen to them and let them speak too, so that they'll be
Hmm.
comfortable to come to you to talk about anything that they're going through.
And that's true.
And it's hard to talk about forgiveness because I know a big part of this had to come from forgiveness. I know that at some
Yeah.
point you had to learn to forgive yourself, and you had to learn to forgive your trafficker. You had to learn to forgive all those people who were
Yes.
involved. So, what would you say about forgiveness? How did you learn to forgive yourself, and how would you encourage other people to go about forgiveness?
To be honest with you, it was really hard to forgive. And the hardest person that I was hard on was myself. Because after a while, you get so complacent and you just accept what you have been through that you fall deeper. For me, I fell into drug addiction for 12 years. And because of that, I tried to commit suicide 4 times. But I'm grateful that God's hand was upon me and that I'm actually here, that I can literally say that and that I'm alive. I really am, because I wanted to, I many times many times I wanted to die. There was times I begged God, like, just don't let me come back. And Eve, there was times when when I had my children, and it was so scary, when I'm feeling the effects of what I have done to myself. There was pills, and then I cut my wrists, and then I tried to choke myself out, and then I took pills again, and then the last time, I made a speedball, which is like cocaine and heroin put together. And because I was up for so many days smoking crack cocaine, that I finally just said, I made it. So I put more cocaine in the needle than I put heroin. And because of that, it was the adrenaline of the cocaine that literally kept me alive. And, you know, um, as parents, I know, the way that the world is going, things are so expensive. We have to work so many jobs just to make ends meet. But you have to take time to conversate with your child. You have to make time for your children. You really do. And we have so many young girls, especially single family homes, where young girls, at the age of 15, 16, they have to watch their siblings while their parents go to work. And you're trying to do your best, to survive and to look after your family, especially as single mothers, that you don't have time. You're so exhausted, you just want to come home, bathe, and just go to bed, and do the routine over and over. But I am telling you today to take time to um conversate with your kids, build a firm foundation. And like Melissa just said, like, sometimes as parents we try to interject all these things upon our kids that they really don't need. And it's so hard as a young teenager that has to feel like she's putting her whole life on hold to look after her siblings while the parents work. And it's young girls like that traffickers prey on. I literally go on a dating site which is called Leo's List, where men can go and find young girls who are posting themselves up, looking for sex for money. And I do this because I want to see for myself, you know, how many young girls are out there that are literally being pimped. And when I do this, there's times that I have young girls reach out to me. I normally get a lot of hits in the province of New Brunswick and on the island of PEI. And I can tell by the way that the person is writing me if they're young because of how they talk to me. It's not in full sentences. Sometimes they start writing in caps when they say to me things like, my guy and I. So as soon as you say something like that to me, it makes me realize, okay, they're young, because they're saying my guy and I. Only a young person would say something like that. And my guy and I would like for you to be a part of our family. Me and my guy wants to know if you are out here by yourself. Do you need protection? When I see stuff like that, that makes me know that the young girl is being pimped, straight up. That makes me know that now they're searching through that website looking for vulnerable young girls. And now that I recently have started working with the RCMP Human Trafficking Navigation Team, I literally go online, like I said, and I'll answer them back because I manipulate the conversation to get them to talk so that I can see for myself, yes, this is really happening. I think this young girl is being trafficked, so that I can pass that information on to the navigation team that I work with. And just recently, I went on this site because police normally don't look for trafficking victims. They're more into the exploitation of pornography with children or cyberbullying. And like this kind of opened the eyes of the navigation team leader that I work underneath. And because they would never think to do anything like this. They normally wait for a young person who has been trafficked to literally come forth and say, I was trafficked. I have a pimp. This is what they did to me. And this is why there is so many unreported sex trafficking victims that literally fall through the gaps because the police don't have enough people. I'm seeing that they really don't have enough people to do this type of work. And it also shows me that, they just can't jump up and just go online and see or look for young girls that are being trafficked, because you need to know what to look for. I pay so much attention because I used to be that young girl. So, and I used to do those things. I used to reach out to young girls online and ask them, like, are you by yourself? And at that time, I didn't have a pimp. I was just doing it myself, but I just wanted to know if they were alone, if we wanted to work together, because a big part of it was because I didn't want to work alone, because I was always fearful of what could happen to me from a John, or if a trafficker could pick me up after all that I've been through. So some of the signs, honestly, to look for as a parent is when you see your child dress in a different way. If she's talking a different language, I met a friend, but they're not giving you the information. You see them walking around with not one cell phone, but two cell phones. Obviously, one's for work and one's their personal. You see them wearing new jewelry. I'm going out to dinner a lot. A lot of girls was, I'm going out to dinner. When your kids are saying to you, I'm going out with Betty, and you know that her and Betty been friends for years, but you know that there's a difference in your child. They're more withdrawn into their rooms. They're spending a lot of time into the wee hours of the morning online. And this is something that traffickers use to literally to be able to groom the child. And when I say groom, they use all these tactics like, meeting them on social media. Then they start talking to them online. And a lot of kids who have a lot of, self-confidence issues are so easily ready to fall into that trap, to be manipulated, because that's what they do. They're very cunning. They're very manipulative. And they already know who to pick because they've already been studying your child online for quite some time. And, when you see your child, like I said, being online for long periods of time. Whether I don't care if they're 16, 17 years old, I think it's that time that you need to be able to sit down and say, hey, I notice that you're online for a long period of time. Yes, that child is going to get upset and they're going to get defensive because they're going to feel like, oh my God, like, does my parents know what's going on? Mom, leave me alone, because they're starting to form a bond with the person that they've been talking to online. And these men use this type of avenue because it causes a breakdown in your family. It causes that child to start getting withdrawn and staying away from home and lying. And I'm going to go with this friend, and I'm out with this friend, and I'm going to spend the night here. Something that they may do, but they may go out and stay over a Friday, but they don't stay 2 and 3 nights with somebody. That's when you really have to start paying attention. Like, what are you doing? Maybe I'm going to have to call that child's mother, your friend's mother, to see if you're allowed to go there, and when you do that, what you're doing is protecting your child. Whether they want you to get involved when they get defiant, or they start getting really upset because they feel like you're in their business. And some kids will say, you need to mind your business. This is my life. And when you hear your child talk like that, and that is not the daughter or the young man that you raised, because sex trafficking doesn't just happen to young girls. It has happened to young boys too. And these men will ask questions like, do you smoke weed? Do you sneak alcohol when you're with your friends? And because that person now is caught up in starting to create a bond, they start telling their whole story to this person that they have never even met, probably face to face, because traffickers don't like you to meet them face to face in the beginning. When they do this, they like to get you into a public place. Hey, let me take you to dinner. Would you like to go to the movies? I have a gift for you. They do these type of things, and they will shower your child with gifts, and with even clothing. I think you would look so good in this, and really, what they're doing is preying on your child's vulnerability. And if for me, my mom and dad weren't together, and it was easy for me. The trafficker would come to my school in grade 7, and he would literally go buy me McDonald's. Now that may seem like, oh, what's McDonald's? McDonald's was a big thing because none of the other kids was getting it. But what it showed me is that he cared about me. He didn't want me eating the cafeteria food. What it showed me, when I told him, I miss my dad, but I don't have my dad because my dad was abusive to my mom. When he held me in his arms. And as a 15-year-old kid, I was like, woo! I was just so in love with a 24-year-old man because he showed me affection that I was already craving. That was a part of my vulnerability. And they look for those type of things, like single parent homes. They find young girls outside of group homes. They go to shelters and they hang outside of shelters. You can go to any airport across Canada and you'll see pictures of young girls missing, because these men will go and sit in airports and look for people that are traveling by themselves. Now in Toronto, we know that sometimes we have men in the airports looking for these young girls, and they would be they would say, hey, are you looking for an Uber? And because you're in a rush and you're not paying attention, and I'm going to this address and that address. And it's not like in the movies, somebody's going to kidnap you and take you, because yes, you may get in that car. He knows where you're staying now. Then, hey, they like to exchange numbers, and all it takes is a full conversation from the time you leave the airport to where you're getting dropped off. And, and because young girls a lot of them are so naive, they fall into the trap. And I'm here, me and my girls are, I come here to spend some time with my girls, or I was away visiting my dad, he lives in another province, and now I'm coming home to my mom. And you could be going through some things at home, because your mom works, she's never there, or there's a lot of arguing in the house between you and your mom. These are things that young girls, because of their vulnerability, that they would talk about, and they give details for details. And it's so easy for these men to say, hey, you know what? You need to go to a nice restaurant. They find out if you're into smoking weed, hey, I got weed. They do this. And young girls, because this is something of their pastime, they would literally take it. I've known that young girls to do this, to take stuff like that from pure strangers. And, and they'll find out if, like I said earlier, if you're into drinking, so that when they do contact you, and you're going to give up your social media information, because, this is somebody that is older, showing you attention. He's telling you that you're beautiful. Even if you believe that you're beautiful, or even if you're having self-conscious issues, you're going to give him information that he's looking for, because this is how they literally groom and lure your children into domestic sex trafficking. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. So you did mention that what you were looking for in your home is basically what these young girls are what they're looking for, right? Um, I so I really wanted this. I wanted to inform our young queens that you have to be open about what you're just sharing with your family, with your parents.
Mhm.
I want you to be don't be afraid. These are people who raised you, and yes, they may come off judgmental sometimes, or they may say things to you. But I would encourage you to share your feelings and what you're looking for from them, so that maybe they may not tell you in conversation right away, but they have something to think about and to take away, and just really just sit down with themselves and say, maybe I can do something better to change my relationship with my child. Because
Right.
I know, although everything is not really the parents, I think young girls and young boys who do harbor their feelings, and they don't really share valuable information with their parents that their parents can use to develop that relationship with their children. But I would encourage that. I know that you said that drugs and alcohol played a really strong role in what happened in your life. Is there
Yeah.
something that you can tell our viewers or encourage our viewers about doing drugs or alcohol?
I'm going to say no to drugs, but we know realistically that um, a lot of kids smoke weed. We know this. Whether they hide it behind their parents' back or not, we know that this is going on. You know, and then we know that getting caught up with other friends, there could be other friends that are into doing cocaine now. And a lot of times, like I said, these traffickers are so cunning, they're so convincing, they're so manipulative that they literally will use other young girls, and that happened with me too, use other young girls to lure girls that they are already looking at as prospects. So I wanted to go home after being with my trafficker for a period of time. And he said, if you help me get another girl, I'll allow you to go home. So we drove into the city from where he was holding me. And I just seen some girl out on the street, and I convinced her to get in the car and to come with me. I kept saying, oh, there's weed there, they're letting us drink. It's just a good party time. And, she listened to me because I had that face, and because I was so determined to go, just to go home after all the stuff that I was going through, that I did whatever I had to say. I did whatever I had to do to make sure that I got that girl in that car so that my trafficker could have her. And, even when we got back to the place where they were holding me, I'll never forget the screams that I heard listening to that girl, because I realized what she was going through behind those closed doors, because it's exactly what I just went through and what I had been going through for quite a good minute. And, I remember saying to him, okay, I want to go home. And that never happened. I wasn't allowed to go home. And I had no choice but to stay. Even when he pawned me off, he didn't even pawn me off. Another trafficker came along and wanted to take me from him, which he did. And that man, was very, very vicious, very, very abusive, especially physically abusive to me. I wear scars on my back from being whacked with a belt across my shoulder. And I just couldn't do what he wanted me to do, because he was asking me to do things that I've never done before. And, after a bit, he ended up taking me back to the other guy that I was originally with. And he said, I don't want to, she'll never make no money because she don't even know what to do. And that was just to perform some sexual acts on a man that I didn't understand how to do, because I've never understood how to do that, because I was green as the grass. And I endured sodomy. I went through that. I went through gang rape every other day. After a while, when that wasn't enough, it turned to bestiality. They literally had me having sex with dogs. And my whole morale, based on all of that stuff, I lost myself. I literally lost myself. And he used to give me this stuff to drink. And I would look at it, and it used to look like little sticks and leaves. And then he would say it's little tea leaves. And because I didn't know any better, I would drink it. It would put me into a state where I could see and hear everything going around, but I just couldn't move my body. And this is what they used to do when they wanted to do sodomy on me or gang rape. So when I really, 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 they have stepped up their game, I should say. Yes, they give kids so much drugs, and a lot of the drugs now that they're giving young girls is acid. A lot of kids are getting hauled in through having Molly. And one of my biggest fears today is I get so afraid when I know that these young girls who are being trafficked or being groomed into traffic, I get really afraid, because I know that fentanyl is a drug that with just a little tiny clip of your fingernail could kill a person. And these men, they don't want you to die. They want you to be in a state where they can maintain control, because that is what it's all about, is maintaining control. If it means I have to threaten you that I will kill your mom, or I will kill your dad, or I will hurt your other siblings, This is how they are able to maintain control over you to get you to do what they want you to do. They use physical abuse. They use sexual abuse, and to make a girl feel demoralized and feel unhuman, because I felt so dehumanized. I because I've never had to experience that stuff before. I didn't feel like myself. I literally there was many days that I prayed like, oh God, if you get me out of this situation, I swear I will listen to my parents. I will never do this again. Like, and when I say that, it came to a point where I was feeling like this was my fault. And this is one thing that they will put into your head, like, honey, listen, just do this one time and let's see how much money we can make. And they do that because they're trying to ask, like, how much, what do you want out of life? And most girls want a husband, they want kids, they want the house, they want the car, and they use those type of things to literally to use as the child's vulnerability to be able to suck them in. Okay, what about if you just do this one time and let's see how much money we can make? And because the child has now formed a bond with this person, and they don't look at them as a pimp because they don't understand that they're being pimped or they're being trafficked. They're looking at this person as their boyfriend, because that's how it happens. It's their boyfriend. And they form a relationship to fall in to get you to be their girlfriend, so that that young person can literally feel like I did, like woohoo, like I like at 15, I didn't understand anything, but I knew that I was in love with this guy. There was nothing that could convince me. I started lying to my mom. I was sneaking out the house. I wasn't going to school. I would get on the bus and go to school, but then I would go meet him. And I was a young girl, a virgin. I didn't, never had sex, but he worked it up to finally to get me to that place that I trusted him enough that I would have sex with him, because he knew he had to do that, as they call breaking in, so that it was easier for him to be able to get me to have sex with other men. And because I was just new to this, they had to keep me doped up a lot. And because I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't understand, why is this guy making me have sex with all these different people? I just couldn't understand that. And when I voiced that, he would love bomb me. And 1 minute, he's telling me he loved me. The next minute he's telling me I'm stupid, telling me that I'm ugly, nobody don't want you. And when he would tell me those things, it made me want to do whatever he wanted me to do, because I wanted him to love me. I wanted him to find me pretty. I didn't want to be ugly. I wanted other men not really to desire me, but I wanted whatever he wanted for me. I wanted that for myself. And these are all the steps that these men take to be able to maintain control over a person that they are luring into domestic sex trafficking. And I say domestic sex trafficking because human trafficking is just the title. There's many forms of trafficking underneath. There's labor trafficking, there's familiar trafficking, there's sex trafficking, and there is also financial trafficking. When we say domestic, it's because it happens here at home. That's why we say domestic sex trafficking. And they're always, because they're so cunning, and they finally got the girl under their control. They know that the child is going to be, disobedient to the parent, and he causes and puts that wedge there because that's the goal. And then they move from province to province, city to city. And this is what we call the underground, the underground railroad, or on top of the road, to be able to stay 2 steps ahead of family members that may be looking, or the police that may be out looking for a child because they've been missing. And one thing that really bothers me a lot is if a child is known to run away a lot. Because when you do go and report them to the police that the child, my daughter has ran away, and, the police say, well, this ain't the first time that you came to us, after a couple of days she came back home. And they will literally try to convince you, maybe wait a couple of days, and see if she's going to come home. And honestly, if you have a child that's in that does stuff like that because they're being defiant, honestly, you need to look past why they're acting out. And when they leave, you need to look for your child. You really do, because those are the kids that traffickers are literally looking for to take and to do what they want to do. And they don't have to kidnap them. They just have to say a few words. And because that child is, outside, probably laying on somebody's couch, and, then how some families can be, okay, that little girl has to go home. She's been here at our house too long. And it's those kids that are prime targets to be trafficked.
It's also helpful because we see a lot of children going missing, and a lot of people have a lot of things to say. But it should be a wake up sign for a lot of people to just show more love. We need to show more love instead of chastising them or like ridiculing them or criticizing them. It's our time to show them more love because you never know what they're actually going through. Maybe
Exactly.
that your love can allow them to open up to share it. You know. Um, your mom, you mentioned a prayerful mother. She always prayed. What can you tell us about the power of a praying mother?
You know what? I thank God for mom. I thank God that my mother is a praying mother. And even when she was praying and the tears running down her face because she felt responsible for me because I was her child. Um, Even when she couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, she held on to her faith. And even when I fell into a 12-year drug addiction and the 4 suicide attempts, and leaving her with the responsibility of raising my 5 children after she raised me and my brother and sister, you know, um, I will always be grateful for my mother for doing that. I will always be grateful for mom that no matter what came against her, what mountain, what giant stood before her, she always knew that she could get on her knees and she could pray to God because she had that faith. And even there's probably was times that her faith wavered because she couldn't see like what's going to happen, and all she's hearing or she's seeing is the negativity of things. But because she had grounds for her faith, because many times God has answered prayers for her that was impossible, that man could not do. When she had to leave from where we were living and we had to live with somebody else for over a 2-year period, she prayed when they told her, oh ma'am, no, you're not going to get that home, like you're just not in that bracket to get it. You know what she said? Yes, I am. I'm even going to be able to tell you the color of the siding I'm going to have on my home. I'm going to be able to tell you where it's going. And I watch my mom many times, how God literally stepped into a situation that I swear that seemed impossible, impossible. And God just turned it around, because she probably thought, like, many times, oh, Wendelin is, probably going to be strung on these drugs all her life, because that's what she could see in front of her. But because God, in so many instances in her life, changed things for her and answered her prayers, she stood on those grounds of her faith to believe that God one day would turn me around. And even though all those times, even when my mind was so messed up, and even when I felt like I was never going to stop being on drugs, I thought I will always, people say you're always going to be a crackhead. You're always going to be a needle pushing junkie. And something, God spared me from not having no diseases, getting AIDS, from being using needles. And it's something that I used to hide anyways, because I used to look down on people that used to do that. But I used to do it behind closed doors because it was a way for me to cope or to bring me down off of a crack high. But, even in the mix of all of that, there's been many times that I would close my eyes and I'd be thinking, oh God, please let mom be praying for me. Please let mom be lifting me up before the throne of grace. And there was times that I would, in my hazy, drugged out mind, I would call her and I would hear her. I could know that she's been crying. And, Gwendolyn, I was just thinking about you. And something would go through me that made me know that no matter what, God was going to bring me out of that situation, even though I couldn't see it at the time, even though it felt like I would never, ever, ever get out of these situations that I was in. And many times I said, God, if you get me out of here, I would never do it again. And even when he brought me out, I fall back into the trap because I just didn't know how to stop having the addiction. I didn't know how to get rid of that. And when it came down to me finally trying to take my life for the fourth time, it was then and only then that I said, okay, God, this is it. I'm ready to change my life. And I remember I called my mom and I said, I'm in this detox place, and I need you to pray for me. And she would pray for me. And it gave me strength because I come from a strong Black woman. I really do. And she would pray for me. And that gave me so much hope that no matter what, I said, I'm not turning my back. I'm going to keep on doing what I have to do to stay sober. So that because I was tired of it. Like even in my documentary, I was tired of getting high. I was tired of selling my body to get high. I was tired of being homeless. I was tired of doing whatever I had to do to stay in that state. And when I knew that I had her prayers behind me, and I always knew that, but sometimes you just have to hear your mama's voice. And when I heard her voice and I hear her pray and I hear her pray in tongues for me, I said, okay, God, now I'm going to do what I have to do for myself, because it gave me so much strength. And because of that, here I am 11 years later. I'm free of addiction. I don't have those suicidal thoughts anymore in my mind. I talk a lot about this with students in school. And this was one of the reasons why I became an applied suicide intervention facilitator, because I realized that a lot of kids who have been through child sexual abuse fall deeply into being targeted for sex trafficking and so many forms of sexual assault. And when I think that the number is rising with suicide in young people, I just said, something? Okay, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to help these young people. And this is why I'm here tonight to share my story of how I went from nothing, because I was nothing because of the thoughts that were going through my mind. There were days that I was trying to concentrate and I would hear so many other thoughts in my head, like, nobody wants you. Nobody loves you. You gave your kids away. Your kids don't even love you. And those were the hardest parts for me to try to keep going, because I felt so bad about leaving my kids behind. But I knew deep down inside that my mother was the best place for my kids to be. And because I knew that, that gave me strength to push through those negative thoughts, all those issues when I had to get up every day. Sometimes I was taking 6 or 7 pills a day just so that I could regulate my thinking, so that I could go to sleep without having nightmares. And once I went to treatment, I've always went to detox, but I never, ever, ever took time and went into a treatment facility. And when I did, that was when I was able to slow down, and God was able to really, really work with me. And I remember the day that I got on my knees in my room and I truly repented before God. And I begged God, please, please, please take me back to where I used to be. Restore the joy of my salvation. And when you go into these treatment centers, it's mainly the Salvation Army, that is the churches that is affiliated with it. And I started to go to church. And one day somebody said, "Oh my goodness, Gwendolyn, you have such a beautiful voice." And so then they were saying, like, would you like to come and lead song service? And I started doing that. And I was able to sing and worship God without caring who was in the room. I started to be able to talk to God, in the spirit, something that I felt that I would never be able to do again. And I was able to literally pray for those young people that were with me, that were in that treatment center, something that I would have never been able to do if I hadn't allowed God to be able to help me. And it was from that I went through 10 weeks in one place, and I knew I wasn't ready to come out on the streets. I knew I would fall back into the drugs. I knew I was going to be homeless. And at this time, I had a husband who had fallen into the same drug addiction that I was in. And it was hard for me to walk away from him because I had such a trauma bonding to him. But God was able to heal my heart. And he was able to give me the strength to walk away from that and just to focus on getting better for myself. And I ended up going into Jane Tweed for 6 months. And I realized after that 6 months that I still wasn't ready to come out of that treatment center. I was so scared that I was going to fall back into the trap. And even though I was praying all the time, the devil was in my ear saying, "Gwendolyn, if you leave out of here, I got you." And that fear alone caused me to go for 10 months out to the Covenant House in Vancouver. And from that day till now, it's 11 years that God has helped me, and to help me walk this journey that it's been hard. It's been a toxic journey, but once I learned to trust God and, made up my mind that this is it, and, and I pressed forward, I knew I had resilience, because the same amount of strength that I put into getting high, I use that to not get high. Anybody that wasn't that wasn't a part of serving God, I cut them off. Anybody that was a hindrance in my life, I cut them off. And finally, I decided I'm going to leave Vancouver and I'm going to come back to Halifax. And when I did, I started going back to church. That helped me so much because it was able to help me build back up my faith and be able to give me fighting power. It allowed me to be able to go and to read the Word of God and literally get into the Word, and not just read, but to study it for myself so that I could be approved. And then on top of that, my brother was a part of my drug addiction life. When I found out that he was part of being into the church, that gave me extra strength. The thought of being able to form a relationship with my children, that gave me more strength. And I had so many people that I knew that were truly genuine in their love and their concern for me. And I leaned on that. I took their encouragement, and I accepted the prayers that they prayed out for me, because it was because of that I am here today. And in 2020, I started thinking about, how can I give back to my community? How can I help young girls and those that identify as gender diverse? Because Blacks, Indigenous, and those that do identify as gender diverse, we are the most to be targeted for intimate partner violence and domestic sex trafficking. And I thought about it and I thought about it. And one day I was talking to my fiance, who is not here with us today. And I said, I'd like to be able to give back to the community. And then COVID hit. And during that time, during COVID, I had time to think. And I said, I'm going to start an organization. I'm going to start a business because I didn't know it was going to be an organization. And then after that, I lost my fiance to cancer. And it set me into a place of depression. But I kept going. I kept showing up, going to church. I kept praying. And I knew that if I kept going and that I would let God help me, that I knew that I would be able to come up out of that depression that I was feeling of losing a loved one. And one day I happened to see this Black woman on social media named Tia Upshaw. And she came up with this organization called Black Woman in Excellence. And so the first thing, I'm glad that I'm a nosy person. And in my head, I'm thinking, like, what is this Black woman out here trying to do? And, I'm thinking, it's COVID. She's out here trying to make money, and I was feeling like, some negative thoughts towards her. But I decided I'm going to pay attention to what she got going on. And I kept following what she was doing. And I still had some reservations. And then finally, one day, she was having a networking event. And I went to that. And I said to her, I want to start a nonprofit. I always hear you talking to people about starting businesses. I want to start a nonprofit. What do I do? And she said, Wendelin, just do it. And she walked away from me. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how do I do that? So then I said to her, I want to be able to help people who are involved in sex trafficking, intimate partner violence, homelessness, and addiction. How do I do that? And then she told me about her program that she had. I took that program. And it was the longest 16 weeks of my life. I'm still taking some of her programs to this day, which has really helped me a lot. But something, I owe everything to God. I would not be here if it was not for the mercy of God. I would not be able to do what I'm doing today and helping so many people if it wasn't for the grace and the mercy of God. I would have never met you if God hadn't made that path for us to connect. So for every child, for every person that hears my story, for every organization that has formed long-term partnerships with me, I thank God. I truly thank God for that, because without him guiding me, and me leaning on him for, because there's sometimes I have tried to, all I seen was money signs and tried to do it on my own. The doors were shut. I got shortchanged. But as soon as I said, okay, God, is this for real? Is this where I'm supposed to go? God walked into rooms, and he walked into rooms before I got there. He opened doors that I never thought that I would be in. And these used to be dreams in my head way back in 2020, like being on stages and speaking to hundreds of students at a time. I used to just visualize that in my mind, but I'm doing that today, and it's only because of God that I'm able to do this work. And I share and I share and I share and I share my story to families, especially to students, because I want people to realize that domestic sex trafficking and relationship abuse is a trend. It is an epidemic, and that it's not the only way. It's not going to end. We know that. But we can help put prevention and intervention measures into place to be able to help those who are vulnerable and who are at risk of being trafficked. So I owe it all to God. I really do. Because without him, this would not be happening.
so grateful that you kept the foremost in your life and you kept relying on God to lead you. You kept relying on God to protect you. I'm so glad that you were your creator, the one who created. And I want to encourage anybody who may see this. Don't give up on God, because He will never give up on what you're facing, no matter what you're going through. God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that you even think. God is able to do it. So continue to trust in God, and He will see you through. Preserve what you are going through. My apologies.
That's okay.
What helped you preserve while you were going through?
Pardon me?
You were going through what you were going through. I know you said that you kept God in your heart, but is there something else that helped you to get through what you were going through?
I started counseling, but what really helped me was the Lord. I had true brothers, and one brother in particular that I know that even to this day I call him my big brother, because he always looked out for me. He always encouraged me, and I used those people who I knew was genuine and wanting to really help me and to really see me thrive, not just in life, but in my walk with God. And I leaned on that. And because of that, and to this day, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I thank God for putting people in place, because we know that the devil comes to lie, steal, and destroy. And you're not everybody that comes into your life is your friend. My mother told me that a long time ago. Not everybody that teehees in your face is your friend. And in order for me to stay strong, not just in my life, but in my walk with God, I had to have strong brothers, strong sisters that truly had faith. When my faith was wavering, I needed to know that I could lean on them, and that with their faith, that God would help see me through. And it's because of that is why I am here today. And I still rely on that. I still, I don't like to talk to everybody, but I have certain sisters and brothers in the Lord that I know at any time I can call and I can say, I'm going through this. I don't have no faith right now. My faith is little. I need you to pray for me. And they will literally pray for me. They don't even want to know the story, because it doesn't matter what I'm going through. It's just that I'm going to pray for you. And those are the people that I keep in my corner. Those are the people that, I always ask God, please bless those people, because no matter what I've been through, these are the people that didn't judge me. They didn't throw me aside when I stank because I never bathed in days because I've been high for days and days. You know, they're the same people that could take me in their arms and hold me and love on me and show me compassion. So, and we have to be able to do that with people. We need to be able to show each other real compassion. You know, I see a lot of people that, you know, nowadays, you know, when I'm in the city, that I used to sit around and get high with. And, you know, they'll say, "Hey, Wendelin, like I tell them I don't smoke, you know, can you give me money?" I don't do that. But I will go and buy them a coffee and a meal. And because you got to be able to remember where God brought you from. And I am not too big, and I am not that I cannot forget where God brought me from to where I am today. Because it had not been for the Lord on my side, I would not be here. It's God that woke me up those 4 times when I tried to take my life. Not me. It was God. Because I could literally feel the life leaving out of me. And who am I not to forgive? And it was hard, like I said, to forgive these people that have done the wrong to me. It was so hard. But I had to learn that I had to forgive in order for me to heal. You know, even talking with my therapist, she gets a big kick out of me because, you know, her doing this work too, it affects her. But I always tell her, even at the end, I said, "You know what? We're going to say a prayer before I walk out of here because I understand this frontline work, doing this work and helping young people. Sometimes it's very overwhelming. And sometimes you know, I get so, I can literally feel sometimes what somebody is going through, especially if I have to accompany somebody to court and listen to their story in a courtroom. Sometimes it's triggering because I have been through some of the stuff that these people have been. And if we don't learn to forgive those that have done things to us, it's really, really, it's going to be hard to heal because forgiveness is not for them. It was for me. And when I learned to understand that for myself, it was easy. Honestly, it was easy for me to forgive those that did wrong to me. Excuse me. So God forgave me. There was times I said, "God, I don't even deserve your forgiveness. I don't even deserve your help. But if you'll just give me another chance." And he did. He gave me thousands of chances. So who am I? Who am I not to give another person another chance? And no, I mightn't be in your life. I don't want to be in your life. You know, that part of me is gone. But I know in my heart that I don't hold nothing in my heart against any of those men that beat me, from my husband to my boyfriends. I know in my heart that I don't hold anything in my heart against the men that traffic me, because God has helped me move up from that. Is this still a healing journey? I'm probably going to be in therapy for quite some time, but that's okay, because besides that, I have the word of God to stand on. I have my church family, and I have those certain people that I know that I can pick up the phone and call and say, "Hey, I'm going through something. Just pray for me." And I know that they got my back.
It's so hard, but it's so essential. It's so essential because if you want healing, you have to be able to let things out of your heart. Because the more
Exactly.
that you store up, it allows your heart to be hard. So forgiveness is so
Exactly.
essential. No matter what the situation is, we always must find that forgiveness in our heart. Whoever it is that did anything to us, said anything
Mhm.
about us, we should always find it in our heart to forgive, because it's not for the other person, and though we may not
It's for us.
forget what the other person did, it's allowing us to heal from whatever whatever they did to us. So healing is essential. What advice
And I
would
just
you
want
give
to
a young
I
queen?
I just want to tell anybody that's on here tonight, if you've been through any type of trauma, I'm telling you, if you trust God, He will help you. Honestly, He really will. Like, I do not look like what I've been through. I do not feel like anything that I have been through because I am truly leaning on the everlasting arms of God to keep plunging me forward and to keep going. And healing is possible. At one time, I thought I would never be where I am today. Mentally, emotionally, I thought I would never be. I thought for the rest of my life, I'm going to be walking around taking antidepressants for the rest of my life. I don't take any type of medication other than the word of God is saying my prayers because I had to, when I made up my mind that I was getting off of drugs, when I made up my mind that this was it for me, and God gave me a chance that last time when I tried to take my life, and I pushed forward. I gave up everything. That meant the doctor's prescriptions. That meant everything. And you may say, oh, well, I have to, take the medication because it helps me for this and it helps me for that. I'm not telling you to throw your medication away. I did it because I just didn't want it. And I truly leaned on God to help me because there was nights that I had such bad sweats and really bad nightmares of the stuff that I went through. But I pushed forward. It was no different than me coming cold turkey off of drugs, heroin and cocaine and crack. And I had to push through all the physical pain, the mental pain, and the emotional instability that I was going through. I pushed through because I wanted to be free. And when I made up my mind that I'm going to be free, that no matter what happens, I'm going to be free, that's when God truly stepped in and He helped me. And there's healing. There's healing. Even if you don't think that you're ever going to heal, there's healing. It really is. And even if you're on here tonight and you're not a believer, therapy helps. Really having true, genuine people in your corner really helps. And not people that will listen to what you're going through and talk about you, but people that would say, you know what? This is what I can do to help you. Because you don't really need to hear the person's whole story. You really don't. And you don't need to interject your own thoughts or your own advice, because sometimes there are some people that just want to talk and they just want you to listen. They don't want advice. They just want to get it off their chest. And since I have became a suicide facilitator, I'm learning that people that feel like they want to take their life, they really don't want to take their life. There's some people that do it. That's why it's a shock to the people that are left behind. But when somebody can come to you and start talking to you about what they're going through, literally, that somewhere along the line, there's going to be a turning point where there's going to be something or someone in their life that means something to them, whether it's their child or, it could even be as much as a dog. They don't want to leave their animal behind. That's a turning point for somebody. And most people just want you to show that you care without judgment.
So my last question I wrote was very much about that. Like, some people really go through some trying time, and some lose faith. But you've shared some powerful words and encouragement for people who, because you went through some very challenging times. And with the fact that you were still able to call on God, even though you were going through that, it's very, very powerful. And as you said, for anybody who is an unbeliever, there are therapists out there who are just willing to sit with you. Even in moments like this, you
Mhm.
can encounter God. So
Yeah.
this is such a great encouragement for people who may be going through challenging times. You don't have to go
Mhm.
through it alone. There are people willing to sit with you and hear you out and just sit there to allow you to pour out whatever it is that you're going through. So I love that encouragement. If you are not a believer, you just find a therapist, somebody who you can talk to, somebody you can just pour out everything that you're going through, and somebody can be there to listen, you know. And I want to encourage that nothing you go through in life is too hard for God to turn around.
Mhm.
God is able to do what we can't even manage, what we can't even
Mhm.
understand. He's all powerful. So I want to encourage you that you don't experience a moment where God shows up and answers your prayers right away.
Mhm.
Trust God because He will. He hears you. He knows. He's with you
Mhm.
through it all. Trust Him. Continue to
Mhm.
believe and continue to call on Him because in a time where you least expect it, He will show
Yeah.
up and He will show you that
Exactly.
real. He will show
Yeah.
you. So don't give up. What encouragement or advice would you give a young queen?
So I want to say to any beautiful queen that's on here tonight, never doubt yourself. You're more resilient and empowered than you even think. And if you have people in your corner who are truly, truly genuine, hold on to those people. And if you can be a help to somebody, please do that. And for any young person that's on here tonight that, have friends that they think or believe that are being groomed or they're into the sex trade, let me tell you this, that is not the life for you. And it might be hard for you to maybe even talk to that person because maybe they're so engrossed in it. But I'm telling you today, if you feel that you're being groomed or lured into prostitution, be honest with your parents, because all it takes is for you to accept money. All it takes is for you to accept one gift, and then you owe. Everything comes with a price. And never feel I'm too scared, I'm too scared to tell my parents. They may judge me. And if there's any parents on here tonight, have more of a relationship with your kids. Please make time for your children. And when you see that your child is not the way that they normally are, I beg you today, please talk to your kids. Human trafficking, domestic sex trafficking, familial trafficking is an epidemic. Nova Scotia is the highest per capita for kids to be trafficked. Ontario is right behind. It sits around the border cities like Windsor and those type of cities that are close to the borders. And your kids get caught up into all these things. And if you don't understand anything that has to do with trafficking, Melissa, if you would put my information into the chat, I am willing to talk to you one-on-one if you want to reach out to me. Also, you can find me on my website, which is empowermentforhope.ca, and I am willing to talk to you. I'm willing to help you in any way that I can. I have other organizations in the province of Ontario where I could get you connected if you feel that maybe my child is going through this. Maybe that's what I've been seeing. I have, if you don't want to speak to me, there are other organizations in Ontario that I can help support you by giving you that information also. But I just want to say thank you, Melissa. I want to say thank you to everybody who came on here tonight. It's never easy to always be vulnerable and to share the things that I have been through, but I do it because I want to be able to help somebody. If only one person is reached by my story, then everything that I have been through have not been in vain. So thank you to everybody that came out here tonight. I truly appreciate that.
So much for coming on and sharing this very informative. I'm truly grateful for you. And though I can't say I love that you experienced what you did, but I can't say that God is not using it to do something great in this season. Because we can see that it is on a rise to be a dynamic force to help these families and these children to get out of what the enemy is trying to trap them in. And I'm so grateful that God has given you the courage to stand up and fight against what the enemy is trying to do in this season. And I pray that he continues to strengthen you and gives you the wisdom and the courage to continue. So I want to thank you so much for coming on and spending time to share this valuable information with us. Life can be so but we should be grateful for every moment that we go through. It's always a learning moment. It's always a time for us to greater understanding, greater wisdom, greater knowledge. It's always a time to grow through our experiences and the things that we have to endure in life. Nothing in life is a mistake. Everything is strategically planned, and it's not for ill will, but it's for our future, to give us hope. It's to strengthen us for our journey and forward. So I want to encourage anybody maybe online that don't look down on your circumstance, but continue to stay strong and trust God, because he can do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. Thank you again for coming on and doing. I know you said you wanted to pray and close us in prayer.
I do. I want to say a prayer that I wrote for you today. So, Heavenly Father, we come before you with gratitude and faith, lifting up Melissa in the work she is doing through Crownfinity TO. Lord, you see the vision you have placed in her heart and the purpose behind every step she takes. I ask you that you continue to guide her with wisdom, clarity, and courage as she leads and serves others. Father God, I ask you to strengthen her when the work feels heavy and remind her that the seed she is planting will bring transformation in the lives of many. Surround her with the right people, those who will support, encourage, and help carry the vision forward. Let every partnership, conversation, and opportunity be aligned with your divine purpose. And Lord, bless the work of Crownfinity so that it becomes a place of hope, empowerment, and restoration for those who encounter it. Open doors that no one can shut. Provide the resources needed, oh God, and allow this work to impact lives far beyond what Melissa can even imagine. I ask you to protect her peace, renew her strength, bless her family, and fill her with joy as she walks in the calling that you have placed on her life. May everything she does bring glory to you and reflect your love to the world. In Jesus' name.
I want to thank everybody who came on to support. And I pray that God blesses you. I pray that you continue to remain encouraged and that something useful and encouraging from this system. We will be back on week. So we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Bye.